to a unit like gyros or tanks, because morts are pretty much, their only job is to kill some buildings. So once they do their initial job of killing buildings, it's more of time to switch to anti-air, because in 4v4 especially, most of the time later in the game it just becomes mass air against mass air. So morts late game, they kind of lose their initial value of just being like amazing units. So once you're kind of late game, I just say keep like 2 or 3 mortars with you, and once those mortars die, you can replace them. But I don't think you need any more than like 2 or 3 mortars total. So just keep that in mind. If you do go mortars, just be ready to switch to gyros at any point. I think gyros are the best anti-air in the game. So yeah, I think they're amazing. Also, I wanted to say, I think Orange is better than he showed in this game. His stats may suck, but like I said earlier, just the fact that we never let up pressure, that throws people off so much. I've had games where I look like a fucking like cripple retard because they just never let up pressure, and I just end up like, I fucking just like crack under the pressure, as gay as that sounds, and I just fucking like, I become like a useless, just like fucking retard. So if you keep that pressure up, your opponent will probably hopefully be as retarded as me, because I think I'm a pretty decent player. So yeah, I always think about that when I'm going like harassing. I always think of, I put myself in that position, and like in Orange's position, I would have been just as fucked as Orange, and I consider myself a decent player. So if a decent player like myself can be so crippled just from like an Archmage or a Blade Master or a Blood Mage, then I can't even like fathom what a like 48% or like a 50% 4v4 player will do, unless they're just like fucking amazing and just like thrive on the pressure and just become like fucking amazing. But that probably won't happen. so yeah, it's always good to keep the pressure on, mess with their economy, put them in situations that they're not used to being put in. Also, I've seen this a couple times. If you're going Archmage and you're doing kind of what some people do, you're just AoE harassing, kind of like I did that game, or Blood Mage or Blade Master, any unit like that. If you're not being detrimental, like if you're not killing peasants, it's good to be persistent and keep going, but there's a point where if you're not getting experience from peasants, you need to get experience, because I've seen like level 1 Archmages in like a 20-minute game, because they're relentless. They're throwing your game off, or you're throwing their game off with your Archmage. But if you're not gaining experience, I'd recommend you to just go creep something, start getting some levels, and then continue your harassing, because with AoE harassment especially, even if you're messing up their economy, eventually their hero, if they're creeping, their hero is going to make up for their messed up economy. So if you're kind of messing up their economy and you're kind of multitasking and creeping while maybe manaing up, stuff like that, then you're going to be a lot more effective. But yeah, if you notice that your hero isn't really gaining levels and it's starting to get like a couple minutes, like it's starting to turn from early game to mid game, you definitely want to start creeping a little bit, and then you can go back to harassing after you at least get a few levels, stuff like that. Also, if you're a 4v4 player, I would recommend playing a couple games maybe on Northrend, because I feel like Azeroth, the mentality is kind of like, oh, I'm going to get a Tinker and I'm going to not get anything else, and I'm just going to like fuck around with this Tinker. Whereas on Northrend, they're like, oh, their mentality is like, oh, I'm going to get a Tinker and I'm going to get high score and I'm going to like fucking rape everyone and like non-stop, just like be persistent and like rape everyone with this Tinker. And like they still want to win bad on Northrend. Like they're desperate for wins for some reason. And Azeroth, they just like, it's beyond me. I can't even understand. They're just like, they don't want to win. Like people will just be like, Oh yeah, I don't care that I just got like butt fucked. Like, dude, I had fun though. Like, I don't even understand. Like, people will just go like a tinker and like get butt fucked and be like, "Oh, I don't care. I only got a tinker." And I'm just like, "Yeah, but you could have fucking won with the tinker." And on Northern, they're like me, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna win with this fucking tinker." They're not just like, "I'm gonna get a tinker." Period. That's all I care. My main goal this game is to get a tinker. On Northern, they're actually like, "I'm gonna win with the tinker and like rape everyone." So yeah, I think Northern is a lot. They're more motivated to win. It seems there's not as much like backstabbing. I don't think I was backstabbed once in like the like 600 games I've played on Northrend. I don't think I was backstabbed once. And if I play like 20 games on Azeroth, I'm backstabbed like 20 times, 20 out of 20. But yeah, anyway. Also, yeah, speaking of kind of the game the game I just commentated, if you're going mortars or tanks stuff like that, it's good, especially with tanks, to kind of split up your army. Like especially on a map like Gold Rush, just send like one tank to every expo, and you gotta keep doing that, and you gotta keep them. You want them to play your game, basically. You always want them on the defensive. Because if you send one tank to every expo, they're gonna be either forced to hit or they're gonna be forced to play your game, which is chasing tanks around. Oh, also, in a lot of 4v4 maps, I would recommend selling items right when you creep a camp. Not necessarily if it's like a red camp and you get an amazing items, but like good players can tell exactly where you've creeped based on the item you have. So if I see like a Farseer with like 2 slippers of agility on Gold Rush, I'm gonna just assume that he has 2 expos up. So I'm gonna go straight to those expos. But if I saw like a level 2 Farseer with no items on it, I wouldn't have as good an idea. So it's always good to think about selling your items if they do kind of just tell exactly where you crept. So yeah, that's a good thing to think about. And also vice versa, you should always look at the opponent's items, because you should learn the items too, because I can look at a hero's items early game and tell exactly where they're crept, and I can basically just see the mini map. I can envision exactly where everyone's exposed and stuff just from the items I've seen on the heroes. Not all creep camps give levels, so sometimes you'll just have a level 1 Farseer, but you have an expo. So it's kind of like, if they don't have any items, it's kind of more of like a toss-up of like, oh, what has he been doing? What has he been doing? Stuff like that. Alright, so feel free to leave comments, concerns, critiques, stuff like that. Thanks for listening, guys.